All right, class. We are going to be moving into our next unit. And this unit involves U.S. history. Ooh. For the next 2 weeks, maybe week and a half, depending on how fast we can get through our reading, we are going to be learning about a war fought against the British. Ooh. Now, can anybody tell me, do you guys know anything regarding Great Britain? Do you guys know anything about it? Maybe what kind of food do they eat? Or maybe you watch a TV show, or maybe you know someone that's from Great Britain. Anybody hands? No? Okay. No, that's okay. Well, just to kind of give you a little bit of insight, Great Britain is next to Ireland and is now known as the United Kingdom. But back in the days, in the 17 and 1800s, it was recognized as Great Britain. Now, Great Britain played a big part in American history because America gained independence from Great Britain after the Revolutionary War. Can you guys say independence with me? Independence. Good job. And all that means is America was not free and was ruled by Great Britain. And once they became independent, they were able to become their own country and have their own rules. So, kind of like that, kind of like your parents. Your parents make sure that you guys eat, make sure you guys sleep, have food on your plate, clothes on your backs, and then one day you're going to be independent once you're a grown adult. So anytime you see the word independent, just know that's what we are talking about. Now for this lesson, we're going to be going over some vocabulary words before we start reading. And as we're reading through the passage, I want you guys to keep these vocabulary words in mind. And when they do come up in text, I will make sure to pause and give us a moment to read that together and possibly even go over what the definition of that word is with our text. So here we have represent or representation. This one's going to be coming up a lot in our text. And that means it's to speak for or take action in place of someone else. Next, we have blockade. Blockade is stopping people or supplies from coming into or going out of the country. Blockade, and one good way to remember that is your parents put blockades on you guys by not bringing toys, distractions, things that are not required in your classroom. So whenever I tell you guys to put it up, you can think of the word blockade, meaning, hey, you're not allowed to bring that into class, or you're not allowed to leave class with it because it is a distraction. But in this terminology, it's stopping crops, things coming from in and out of the country. So for example, we would have corn, tea, things coming from different countries into the United States. And essentially blockade means, hey, you can't bring that in here. Simple as that. Next word on our vocabulary list is trade. The business of buying and selling goods. Now, I know you guys have been bringing in some Pokemon cards over the last few weeks, and you guys like to trade Pokemon cards. Well, that's one good way to remember that. If I give you, let's say, 2 pencils, and you give me 2 markers, we're essentially trading goods or items. But in our text, the business of buying and selling goods means, hey, I'll give you this much amount of tea and you'll give me blank, blank, blank. And that is considered a trade. Next word is seize, to use official power to take something. Let's go back to the Pokemon cards. If you guys have your Pokemon cards out while we're reading or while we're doing something in class, I am going to seize those items and put them up until the end of the day. So my power to take something away from you. and you'll see what two parties or what two groups or people are going to be involved with that word. Last word on our vocabulary list is impressment. Now, this one's tricky, guys. Impressment. And this is forcing someone to join the military against their will. Whoa. Have you guys ever had someone force you to do something that you don't want to do? Yeah, lots of hands being raised. Okay. Well, it's not like where you're at home where you're being forced or being told to do something for your own good. In this context, a country or a certain group, which we'll get into, was forcing someone or a group of people to join the military without them even wanting to. If you tried to do that in today's time, you would not be allowed to do that. So, impressment was something that would happen back in the 17 and 1800s, and you'll see who that involves. All right, you guys have a good grasp of what these words are. Remember, they're going to be coming up in our reading, so please pay attention as I will be asking questions throughout the text. All right, just a little review from our last talk about U.S. history that ties into today. Before the U.S. became our 50 United States, we were just 13 colonies ran by Great Britain. Can you guys say Great Britain? Great Britain, right? And where's Great Britain at? Nowhere near the U.S. They are on the other side next to Ireland, like we talked about earlier. The British, Great Britain, passed the Stamp Act in that time period, and that was a tax on paper items like newspapers, legal documents, and even playing cards. So think of it as like whenever you are going to purchase something at the store and the cost of that item is $1, right? But when you go and check out, the cashier or the person charging you says your total is going to be $1.08. You're like, whoa, I thought it was $1, correct? Where are those 8 cents coming from? That is considered a tax. And so what they do with that money, or what they did back then, is they would take that tax money and give it to the British. Now, some people thought this was unfair because those funds were being collected from the colonies, the 13 colonies, but they were not being used to support or govern the 13 colonies. So it's like someone telling you, hey, if you give me this amount of money every time you purchase something, I'm going to put it in a piggy bank so you can use it for clothes or you can use it for food. Well, guess what? That money was not being used for you or the 13 colonies. It was being used for Great Britain. Aside from the Stamp Act, the British also passed the Townshend Act, where they would tax on goods, but this time it would be more like tea, glass, and paint. And these are all supplies and items that were used to build the 13 colonies and to continue it to grow. Lastly, the British also passed the Tea Act, which, of course, you can guess it, is a tax on tea. That's correct. But yeah, so it sounds like Great Britain was wanting to get a lot of money out of the 13 colonies in an unjustifiable way. That's a key word there, huh? That's a big word. All it means is they were taking money from the 13 colonies without a really valid reason. Now, Great Britain was being run by King George III. King George III was the king of Great Britain. He essentially made a lot of important decisions when it came to Great Britain. Now, as we talked about, Great Britain controlled the 13 colonies. Essentially, those 13 colonies didn't really have a say in how things were being done or how things were being run. So Great Britain had just got done fighting in the French and Indian War. Can you guys say that with me? French and Indian War, which happened between 1754 and 1763. And after that war, King George III in Great Britain had a lot of debt to pay. Can you guys say the word debt with me? Debt. debt. Debt means you owe someone money. So if I owe you $1, I have debt and I owe you money. Not only did Great Britain have a lot of debt to pay after the war, Americans, or the 13 colonies, remember you guys, 13 colonies is America before it became the United States of America. Us 13 colonies helped Britain fight in the war. Now you're probably asking or wondering, why did we help Great Britain fight in a war that had nothing to do with us? I see a lot of hands raised. Don't worry, guys, we are going to get into it. All right. Now, 13 colonies. We're going to go back to our image. Where were the 13 original colonies located? From looking at the map here, where do you think those were located? They were located along the eastern coast of North America. Eastern coast means not north, not south, not up, not down, not west, not left, but right. East side of North America. So as you can see here, we have Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and all these other 13 colonies that were there, trying to progress, trying to be better than what they already were. And of course, right now we have 50 states in the United States of America. So rest assured, we did grow as a country, but it was a long and hard process that took years and hard work. All right, let's see. So to review again, the colonists felt it was unfair for Great Britain to tax us on all these items. And I mean, essentially, we had no say in how our colonies were being run. We had no say in the government making laws. Can you guys say government with me? Government. And government is just like the government we have today. They help make laws, they help keep things established, they help the country run efficiently. And so essentially, us 13 colonies said enough is enough. And this led to the idea of taxation without representation, saying we're okay with paying taxes, but we would want to know where our taxes are going to and are they representing us in what we have to say and how our colonies or country are being run. They felt it was unfair to be taxed by a government that was far, far away, nowhere near the 13 colonies. Because if you guys remember, Great Britain is on the other side of the world, next to Ireland. All right. So, Boston Tea Party. What was the Boston Tea Party? The Boston Tea Party ties in with Great Britain and the colonies, was an event in which the colonists dumped British tea into the Boston harbor so that the British lost tea and money. So what does that mean? That means that when these ships came to the 13 colonies, their plan, Great Britain's plan, was to A, sell the tea to the Americans, and B, not only sell them at a high price, but tax them for it. So charge them a little bit extra. And why? So we can pay King George. And as you can see, I don't think us colonies took that too kindly. And so what did we do? We snuck into the ships late at night or early in the morning. We broke in. We poured all the tea that was still Great Britain's because they had yet to sell it to us, and we poured it into the ocean. Can you guys believe that, guys? Could you imagine if someone broke into your house, went into your refrigerator, and threw away and pour out all your Capri Suns, your juices, your snacks? You'd be livid, right? But this is what the colonies had to do in order to make a stand, which is why the Boston Tea Party was such a significant event for the colonies, for America, which eventually led to the Revolutionary War. Can you guys say that with me? Revolutionary War. Whoa, that's a lot of letters, huh? A lot of letters. So now that we're about to dive into the Revolutionary War, we're gonna see what did the 13 colonies do to get away from these acts to get to become independent, right? What do you guys remember about the government that was formed in the U.S. Before the Revolutionary War? Well, we were growing, we were establishing ourselves, and essentially we needed help from Great Britain to grow, but it was unfair the way Great Britain was helping us. Here we are. All right, so once the Revolutionary War occurred, America becomes independent. Now, America fought Great Britain in the war, right? The 13 colonies became the United States of America, so we were no longer recognized as the 13 colonies. And us as Americans, instead of colonists, did not want a king. We wanted to represent ourselves. And so that's where we started to get the idea of what kind of government did we want for ourselves? Did we want a monarchy, a democracy, or a dictatorship? Now, those are pretty big words, but essentially, monarchy is what King George III was for Great Britain, a leader who had assistance from other individuals in that country to make big decisions, but essentially, that king, King George III, made many selfish and bad decisions that did not represent what Great Britain was. And so, us as the Americas, the United States of America, we wanted a democracy. And a democracy is when we, the people, not a king, not one individual, were in charge of the government. So we can make decisions as a group, kind of like us. You know, whenever I ask you guys if you want to do this or that, and us as a classroom get to speak up and say, oh, we want ice cream, or oh, we want frozen popsicles. You know, when you guys do amazing in class, that's what America wanted for themselves. They wanted to be able to make decisions that would make their country better. All right. And so with all that in mind, we have the Founding Fathers. All right. Does anyone know anything about the Founding Fathers of the America? No? That's okay. We're going to get into our reading. From 1775 to 1783, America fought Great Britain for independence. This conflict was called the Revolutionary War. Against all odds, America won. We won. What had been the 13 original colonies officially became the United States of America. After gaining independence, the American people did not want kings or queens governing them anymore. America wanted to create a new kind of government. They wanted to be able to elect individuals to represent. Can you guys say that with me? 1, 2, 3. Represent the people and act with their best interests in mind. They wanted a government that was by the people, for the people, just like in our last slide. Represent. What does represent mean, you guys? It was on one of our slides, but now that we've read the context or the text, what can you guys tell me about the word represent? Represent means to speak for or take action in place of someone else. So whenever we make our decision on whether we want popsicle sticks or ice cream, I can be looked at as a representative for our class, and I represent Mr. Guzman's class in saying, our classroom wants ice cream, speaking on behalf of everyone here in our classroom. So if you guys ever forget what the word represent means, think of Mr. Guzman representing the classroom and speaking up for everyone when we want ice cream. The Founding Fathers met in Philadelphia in 1787 to create a new government. Founding Fathers included George Washington, who's on the $1 bill, Thomas Jefferson, a president that was in-house, just like George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, the gentleman who invented the light bulb, which we'll get into in a little bit later this week, and many, many more other folks got together to write the Constitution. Has anyone heard of the Constitution? Yeah? What do you think it means? It's a piece of paper. Yeah, can you tell me more? No, that's okay. No worries. And so I am going to be placing these images on our timeline. And so we are going to be mapping out throughout the next week or two our timeline for the War of 1812. We're going to get this up on the board. All right. To help create the new form of government, several elected leaders met in Philadelphia in 1787. Some leaders who could not attend, such as Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, wrote down their ideas. Remember, Thomas Jefferson was the third president. John Adams was the second president. Together, this group of leaders became known as the Founding Fathers. The Founding Fathers' ideas all came together in a document called the U.S. Constitution. Bam! The Constitution. All right. The Constitution became the framework for the American government. A framework is the basic structure of something. So essentially, it's what set our foundation. It's what kind of put us in stride to build our government to what it is today. A man named James Madison had a clear vision of how the United States should govern itself. James Madison, also known as the father of the Constitution, whoa, that's a big terminology right there. That's a high praise. Father of the Constitution, because he put all of these ideas together by writing the Constitution with the help of George Washington and others. James Madison is also known as the fourth president of the United States. So what can you guys notice about all these people, the Founding Fathers, James Madison? What can you guys tell me that they all have in common? Yeah, most of them were a leader or a president for the United States, which is really interesting because presidents are known to represent the country that they work for. So James Madison, when he was the fourth president of the United States, he was our representative, or he represented, which, right, one of our keywords, vocabulary words, the United States. So I think that's really, really neat how one big piece of land, one group of people can be represented by someone. And that's why it's really important for us to have a voice and for our country to be a democracy, because we need to be able to choose or elect who is going to be making these decisions and representing us. For many years after the Revolutionary War, the United States grew larger and wealthier. New states such as Vermont, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, and Louisiana were added. New territories were settled, and in 1803, we are going to be adding another image to our timeline. 1803, President Thomas Jefferson purchased the Louisiana Territory from France. This purchase more than doubled the size of the United States. Holy snap. So if you look at our United States map, our 13 colonies were here on the eastern side of the map, right? Remember, east. And all of this land here was owned by somebody else, whether that was Mexico, who is down here south. This piece of land here was owned by France. And so what our country did is we went ahead and gave them a substantial or large amount of money to purchase this piece of land, which, you know, in the end, if you look at our U.S. map now today, you'll see Oklahoma, Kansas, North and South Dakota, all these other countries that were not part of the United States that now are. So I think that's pretty cool. As a country, we got our own setup. We started growing in space. We started purchasing more land. I mean, these are all great things for our country. So Excellent, excellent. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, France and Britain went to war against each other. Whoa. What do you think is going on there, guys? Sounds like France and Britain did not like each other. I wonder where America stands in that, because that's an A and B situation. And just like how I say in class, see yourself out of it if you're not A and B. Britain went to war against each other, right? This series of wars became known as the Napoleonic Wars. Can you guys say that? That was a trouble one for me. Napoleonic Wars, named after the French leader in the war at the time, Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte wanted to make France the most powerful nation in the world. Britain was determined to stop him. The United States considered both France and Great Britain to be its friends. Whoa. What do you guys think about that? The United States is friends with France and Great Britain, but those two friends are arguing and not liking each other. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine you, Timmy, Johnny and Ashley are your friends, but Johnny and Ashley do not get along and are not friends with each other? That would definitely make things hard when it comes to hanging out or playing, right? Interesting. What do you guys think is going to happen? Do you guys think America is going to come in and say, stop it, no fighting? Do you guys think that they're going to side with one person or one group? Do you think they're going to be on the British side or on the French side? I don't know. We're going to keep reading. It did not want, the United States considered both France and Great Britain to be its friends. It did not want to get involved in these costly and destructive wars, because we're growing. Why would we want to get in the middle of that if we got our own thing and we're growing in space, in territory, where we're becoming united? Like, why would we even get into that, right? The Napoleonic Wars were being fought all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, which greatly affected the United States. Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good. That does not sound good at all. All right, on to the next slide. Trade problems. Much of the United States' growth during this time depended upon trade with France and Great Britain. Okay, I see what's going on. Can you guys remember what the word trade meant? What does trade mean? Remember, guys, think of your Pokemon cards. Okay. I give you this, you give me that. Okay, let me help you out a little bit. Trade refers to the business of buying and selling goods. So just kind of simplify things for you guys. Think of buying and selling goods. Trade means buying and selling goods. Britain and France had many merchant or trading ships. These ships sailed across the Atlantic to trade goods with the United States, Canada, and with many of the British and French-owned islands in the Caribbean. For example, the United States sent flour and tobacco to France and Great Britain. Great Britain and France received sugar and coffee from other countries. Both countries wanted to stop the other from trading with the United States. They also tried to prevent the other from getting money and supplies. Wow. They did not want the United States to choose sides. That's wild. Could you imagine, again, Johnny and Ashley are friends. And Mr. Guzman says, hey, do you want to trade this? Do you want to trade that? And both of them say, no, you can't trade with Ashley. You can only trade with me. And imagine Ashley saying, you can only trade with me. You can't trade to Johnny or talk to Johnny. That seems a little unfair, because Mr. Guzman or the United States gets put in the middle of something, in the middle of trouble, and we have no reason for being in that, you know? But at the same time, Mr. Guzman needs these items. The United States needs to be able to receive cocoa and sugar and coffee, because these are the things that are being used in the United States. Could you imagine if that were to happen in today and out of nowhere, milk, candy, your favorite snack just disappears from the grocery store? And when you go and tell them, hey, what happened? Why isn't my snack at Walmart or Target? And they say, oh, sorry, we're not allowed to trade with the people that send this over to us because of such and such. That seems unfair for you, for Mr. Guzman, for the United States. So what do you guys think about that? Seems unfair, huh? What do you guys think is going to happen next? Are we going to continue to trade with both France and Great Britain? Are we just going to stop and starve and not be able to receive anything? So many questions. To keep the French from trading with the United States, the British blockade, that's one of our key words. Can you say it with me? Blockade or blocked several U.S. ports. Rejection. They also blocked several important ports in Europe. This seriously hurt the U.S. trade. France and Britain both had large naval fleets positioned in the Atlantic Ocean to attack each other's ships. Wow. To make matters worse, the British and the French began to seize, there's another one of our key words, seize or capture American ships loaded with valuable cargo. It became almost impossible to safely transport goods from the United States to foreign ports. It was also more and more difficult for Americans to receive much needed goods. Wow. So let's go back to that. The word seize. It sounds like the British and French started taking away or seize cargo. And cargo essentially just means, valuable items, coffee, tea, all things that are needed for the United States to operate, to run properly. So it's almost like someone taking away your stuff for no reason. And you're just like, that's not fair. Why are you taking away my pencil? Or why are you taking away my notebook? It's mine. So for the United States, this was very unfair and problematic. Merchant ships weren't the only ships in the sea. The United States and Great Britain also had naval ships. Life in the British Navy was not easy. Conditions on their naval ships were terrible and punishments were harsh. Because of this, the British Navy had a hard time finding men who wanted to be sailors. Imagine if you wanted to work at McDonald's or Target and people started disappearing, or you would see them at school or at church and they would say, man, I went to work yesterday and my phone, my iPad got taken away and I don't know who took it. That would not make me want to go work at Walmart or Target. And could you imagine if your friends just never came back to school? You'd say, where did Johnny, where did Timmy, where did Ashley go? And then it turns out that they were being impressed. There was an impressment of them. And so that just does not sound right to me. People are missing. People's items are starting to go missing. I mean, this is rightfully wrong. Rightfully wrong. All right, let's see. To get more sailors, the British began to capture men from other countries' ships and force them to join the British Navy. Whoa, that's like forcing you to join art club even though you don't like art. Sometimes these sailors were British deserters. A deserter is someone who runs away from the military. However, more times than not, the sailors who weren't seized weren't even British. But that did not stop the British from doing it. They even seized many U.S. sailors. This practice of forcing men into the British Navy, was called impressment. Can you guys say one of our vocabulary words together? 1, 2, 3. Impressment. Oh, that wasn't everybody. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Impressment. Wow. So what do you guys think? It seems pretty unfair, huh? You guys have anything to add? Anything you guys wanna chime in with? I mean, it's a pretty big deal. Okay. Now, you're probably wondering, why is Mr. Guzman talking about all of this? Well, one, it's U.S. history. So I think it's really important for you guys to know this, so you guys kind of have an understanding of how the United States came to be and how hard and how difficult it was for us to become independent from Great Britain, from King George III, and how even after we became independent, it was very difficult for us to grow as a country, because of somebody else's shenanigans, because of the French and Great Britain War. And so, why does this all matter? America was treated unfairly, trade was hurt, and sailors were taking. We weren't allowed to trade with other countries because either one, they refused to do so out of fear, or our boats would go missing. Our sailors who would be in charge of delivering these items to our country, or to the other countries, were taken and never seen again. I mean, these were all issues that we thought we'd be fine moving on from, but really it took a toll on the United States. And so now that we've gone through the Revolutionary War, we've gained our independence. Unfortunately, that did not stop the United States from, yep, joining another war. So all of these issues, all of these problems help lead to the War of 1812. All right, guys. And so that's going to be our reading for today. I know that was a lot of information. And so we are going to go ahead and review our vocabulary words again as we go over them together. Represent, to speak for or take action in place of someone else. Blockade, stop people or supplies from coming into or going out of the country. Trade, the business of buying and selling goods. Think of the Pokemon cards. Seize, to use official power to take something. Think of Mr. Guzman grabbing something you're not supposed to have in class and giving it back to you at the end of the day. Impressment, forcing someone to join the military against their will. Now, with these words in mind, I am going to put up a list of groups or people up on the board. For each individual or group, tell me who or what they represent. Be sure to answer in complete sentences and use the word represent in your response. So for example, if I say the President of the United States, how would you phrase that? Okay. The President of the United States works to represent the people in the United States. And so that's just one example. So we're going to put some groups or people up on the board. We're going to work on our vocabulary and tie it into what we just read and went over. And tomorrow we will pick up on where we left off regarding the War of 1812.